Welcome back to the Neurotic Podcast, and I am Dennis Patholkas, one of your hosts, and with me in San Francisco is my lovely co-host, Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
Hi, neurotic people.
Yeah, it's been a while. Oh my God, thank you, Movie Finobi. We already got a $1.99. It says fitting on football Sunday. Coach Gary is sidelined.
Oh,
fitting. Okay, there we go. Fitting on football Sunday. Coach Gary is sidelined. There we go. Got it. Thank you, Moo Finobi, for the $1.99. We are going to be covering Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan season 1 that was on Amazon. And Gary didn't get a chance to finish it off. I know, Mel, you got a chance to finish it off, I think, before I did.
And yeah, I was really looking forward to it. So I had planned on watching it that weekend and was able to watch it in 2 nights, just split it up.
Nice. What did you think? I mean, I know it was only 8 episodes.
Yeah, so it wasn't that hard to get through. I thought that I opened really good. I was really into it. It grabbed me right away.
Yeah, I mean, it started, for me, and we kind of went over this on one of our Friday Night Tights. We did the first episode. I found it a little predictable in the beginning, just, when he gets cut off in the car. And I'm like, oh, and there's your new boss. Meet your new boss. And I was just kind of joking around. I'm like, oh, no, it really is? Come on.
Yeah, I know, when it comes to stories like this, I think that they are very formulaic, and that's where the acting and character development stuff is what really has to draw you in. I thought that it looks really good. I thought visually it was pretty nice to look at. It shot well, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's, I would say by the third one, I was like, where are we going with this? And then I'm like, is that their idea of making it unpredictable, is just sort of like mixing in these side stories that don't go anywhere? I'm all, thanks for that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. I was actually kind of trying to figure out at some points, I was going, okay, so they're trying to make the terrorist sympathetic now, because there was one episode where they're going into his past about when he was in France. And then they're kind of like, nope, we're abandoning this storyline. We're going someplace else. He's becoming too sympathetic, And then at one point, I thought they were actually going to. Oh, and by the way, before we actually start, I should say, spoiler alert. So we are going to spoil the shit out
of this one. You better be ready.
So if you haven't seen it yet, you can go and watch it if you want to. It's on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, it's 8 episodes, so it's about 8 hours. I felt, for me, that it was a 2-hour long movie that kind of got stretched into 8 episodes.
I can see that. I was definitely not as fast as you. I mean, like 24, right? But it definitely didn't have the intrigue and character development that you would have had from, say, like Alias. When we get into political and sort of that espionage, and I love the lead guy. I think Jack Ryan's really good as this sort of like unassuming, kind of semi-damaged, like physically semi-damaged. He's not really able to do all the things that he was able to do. He's got this desk job, and he's really smart. And I think that's what really draws me to that character, is like, you never meet somebody who's, that bright, who really can sort of take on the roles of, like, I could have been a good soldier. I can be this desk guy. I can, tell you what to invest in the stock market. And I think that's really interesting to look at. But then, they just didn't, he's outspoken. He has some tenacity. He's not really worried about being the popular guy, and he'll do what he wants to do to sort of get the job done. And I thought that all came out like in the first couple of episodes. And then after that, you're like, I don't know, his budding romance was really stunted. It's like, it's really, I don't know. So it was like the editing. Was it the editing? Because it's like, they're together, then they're not together. She's calling him a liar, and then they're going out to dinner. I'm like, obviously.
Yeah.
And I just missed the whole part where she comes to terms with that. And I was like, maybe I did miss something. I was watching it,
No,
she really systematically.
Yeah, she kind of went through the 7 steps fairly quickly, like within, I think, sipping a glass of wine. She was like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. Yeah. I'm with it. Yeah, it was kind of weird. I was kind of disappointed with her character because I know that eventually becomes his wife, and with the whole epidemiology going on with the Ebola, I thought they were going to kind of tie her in a little bit more to it than just kind of have her as a, I don't know, almost like a sidebar, like a tangent that kind of touches on what he was doing, just to find out what he actually does for a living.
Right. And I think that would have been so much more useful to the story than that whole sideline with Tombstone and the drones and his guilt and
Yeah.
the weird Vegas sex thing. You know, one of the things that I thought was really interesting because this was on Amazon Prime is I actually went through and read a lot of the reviews on Amazon from the people who had, you know, been waiting to watch it and they'd already watched it and it was up there and they were like, oh, all the weird sex stuff. And I was like, there was sex in it? And then I remembered that episode. I'm like, when they had that whole Vegas thing and they get all drunk and go back to his place and the making out. I actually fast forwarded through that because I looked at those three people and I was like, I have no interest in watching them make out and get it on in any way, shape, or form. I don't even really care about this. And it isn't pertinent. I got to the end of the season. I was like, there was no reason for it whatsoever.
The drone guy was unimportant. It was like an unimportant side story for some reason. I don't know what it was. And I was just like,
because they had to show him feel guilty. They had to show him feel guilty and go over there and try and make amends. And I'm like, you know, they have counselors for this. You know, they would have been on the watch for this. If he's sitting there sweating at his desk, she's not like, ooh, high five, here's your $1. You know, that's not what's going to happen. If I would hope not. I mean, I'm not in the military, but I know a few people have been in it, and I don't think that they're high fiving and checking boxes and gathering dollars. And if they are, you know, then that's something that needs to be evaluated. But it's like
your dad doing that.
Yeah, I can't see that. I'm like, you know, that's the kind of thing that you do. You move forward. Things have to be done. But, you know, you got to be able to compartmentalize that stuff. If you're dripping sweat and feeling guilty, and I just don't think he would have been able to even fly out and into that country.
Yeah, exactly.
With his passport. And so there was some big holes in that. And it was just a way of making them show that, like, not everybody on our side feels really good about what they're doing. I was like, that's the only reason I could come up with that they would even try to work that in there.
Yeah, it was kind of like you could tell where the writers were thinking about things. Like I said, you know, at first they're kind of making the Suleiman almost sympathetic, and they're like, nope, we got to abandon this storyline because he's becoming a little too sympathetic. And then you can see they thought for a second there of him using his kid to carry this stuff in to the president. You could see them. They were actually kind of thinking about it. They're like, nope, we can't make him that evil.
Right. Like, he's only kind of a psychopath, right? Like, just you know, mildly. He still loves his family. Like, you know, one of the examples of that I thought was really weird. I'm like, I wonder how many terrorists go on their way and almost get nabbed and make sure to still bring home presents for their kids. Like he was in Cleveland on a business trip.
Yeah.
I was like, here's your presents, here's your spoils. But, you know, it just seemed very unlikely. Yeah,
it was just a very weird show for me. It was one of those things also when I was done with it. It was out of my mind. It was nothing remarkable.
Not much of a cliffhanger, not much to look forward to. You're not going like, oh my God, I can't wait to see how they wrap that up. It's like, you kind of get to it started off strong. It kind of like flood in the middle. And then you kind of are like, okay, that's wrapped up. I'm glad there was only 8 episodes, I guess, because they wouldn't be able to do much more with it because the romance wasn't there. And, you know, there wasn't a cliffhanger, spoiler alert. It's like, you know, at the very end, the bad guy goes down and they're like, okay, next. I'm like, so what did they just come up with some new terrorist that they're after every season? Is that what they're going to do? It's
like, I guess he's going to Moscow next season is what's going on. So, because his boss Greer ends up going to Moscow, the Moscow branch. And then he opens up his little dossier thing and he's got plane tickets in. And Greer says, you know, as a handwritten note says, see you in Moscow. And it's like, okay, so he just reassigned him over the guy who just assigned him to Moscow. So
Right.
how could
I thought Greer's story was so much more interesting, sort of like, the sort of fallen hero. He'd been shamed, he'd been dumped in this terrible post. He comes across this sort of genius analyst who gives him a chance at like doing this job, getting some redemption, and he gets to kind of sit back and have Jack Ryan sort of be the bulldog for him. Like he's the dog with the bone that won't let it go, and he's charming enough to get them on the team, and they're on a plane and going over there because he just gotten relegated to that desk job.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he wasn't. Didn't seem like much of a punishment there, but I mean his story and his acting and he had probably the most potential to be really interesting.
Going backwards, going backwards is a punishment. It is. It's a lesson in humility. Trust me on that one.
Yeah, when they
going back to an old job that you had ascended past, and then you have to go back.
Tell us about that, Gary.
Oh, it's a practice in humility. It is great.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Yeah, and
Gary has changed. I transitioned, Marcus.
And also the other thing that kind of, at the very end, the end message where the mom has the daughters and the son ends up joining them after they've killed the father, of course. And what was it? Greer says something like, he goes, "Oh, well, it looks like everything worked out for the better." And then Jack is just kind of looking at the closed door and he goes, "Well, we'll see. We'll see," kind of thing. Like, I'm going to be watching this kid just to make sure he doesn't turn into a terrorist as well. And I'm like, really? Really? That's the best.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really take it like that. I think he took it like, remember his flashbacks, he got blown up by the kid that he had befriended. Yeah. So he knows like you can be feeding that kid, playing ball with that kid, and he may get the word to like, oh, today's the day you're going to blow that crew up, and it's like, and it's going to happen because then he can go to heaven and all, he's going to do the work of his people and what needs to be done, and he's not sitting at a desk sweating over it.
Yeah, I just found it weird. That was just kind of a weird message near the end there. I was just kind of like, okay. You just saved this. You kind of went out of your way to save this kid, and now you're just like, I'm keeping my eye on you, man. I'm watching you.
Well, the other thing that I thought seemed very unrealistic is when he sends, when Suleiman sends his guy after the wife, and the daughters, right? And he sends them after him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, just don't let the kids see you take her out."
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no, that probably wouldn't have happened. He would have wanted them all back so he could have punished her and made an example of her personally, because it was such an affront to, his humongous ego that he has going here. And I will say that the show had the most Calvin Klein model looking terrorists I've ever seen, like with the smoochy lips and the cool hair. And I kind of really did love the flashbacks to when they were kids in France, and and they just look like really hipsterific kind of regular dudes hanging out, and they're also very, very smart. He had worked his way through school, and it just tried to like play him off that he was this terrible victim of circumstance. And it's like, I think we've seen enough people have really shitty circumstances that are able to pull themselves out of it. They don't necessarily, it just shows that he goes into prison and gets indoctrinated there, and that's just a whole another story about correctional facilities and how much they are helpful.
Yeah, I did. I mean, the one thing they did show kind of accurately, I guess you could say, was that the whole French thing where they're saying if you're not French, you're not French.
Right.
Where you can any place.
Yeah, you can be African American, you can be Mexican American, Chinese American, and in France, it's not hyphenated. They basically are in a ghetto, and you're either French or you're not. And could you talk just for a second about how the cute French cop just had the worst wig? That was a wig.
Yeah, I know.
It was really bad. Again, not Alias. Alias had whole special outtakes of like you know, those costume changes and stuff they used to do. And that was probably one thing that would take me out of it was, you know, she was so static. I'm like, you know, and Gary gets on and on about how like, oh, all the shows right now are so like pro-feminist and this kick-ass girl and da-da-da, and it's really beginning to get to be too much and it's getting crammed down our throats. I'm like, well, in the show, and granted, it is called Jack Ryan. Like, you know, it's definitely the dude and it's got the lead and you're expecting there's going to be a lot of soldiers and all that sort of like, you know, testosterone going. But you have this French female detective and she's so flat. They didn't give her anything interesting to do or say. And she gets killed. Like,
yeah, I know.
She's supposed to be the liaison who's leading this team, and she gets shot at a gas station. That didn't play well for me. And then you have the girlfriend that's supposed to, you know, that's this doctor and scientist and who's studying the Ebola, and she just didn't seem that tough to me either. And it's like she's been on teams that have seen awful things, you know, and gone in and seen devastation of these diseases, and she just seemed a little too prim, a little too proper for me.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked the French detective that they had, just because of the way she was, you know, giving him advice, you know, on his girl, you know, the girl that he liked, she was putting it, and she says, she goes, did you text her? He's like, yeah, and she goes, what'd you text? And he tells her, and he goes, that's not bad. She goes, but then again, it could also come off as creepy too.
Right. See, to me, it's like, you know what? A badass detective isn't going to stop and give you advice on your love life. It's just
they were driving, you know.
Yeah, you know what? If you have a long ass drive, you're thinking about the stuff. I don't know. That just seemed to me like a little overly familiar.
It was. Well, she was interested in him. That was the whole thing. She was, you know.
And if you're interested in him, you're not giving him advice on what to text the girl at home.
True. This is true.
So I thought the whole thing was really bizarre with her.
Like I said, the writing in this was not the best. It was very pretty. It was very polished looking, the production, but the writing really, really needed to be worked out a little bit more than, like I said, you could tell how the writers were.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was the editing or the writing, because you have to remind me what's the name of the doctor, Kathy,
yeah.
Kathy, they're out at dinner and she sort of gives him a speech about how like this isn't all that serious and we're just gonna have fun, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, did I miss a scene in there somewhere where it's like, why is she bothering to have wine and work it out? Because this is that messy stuff that 3 scenes ago you said you didn't want to deal with. This isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
If he's already lying and why are we sitting down and having a glass of wine, giggling, and then ordering something stronger?
It was the writing, honestly. Now that you bring that up, it's the writing at that point.
Yeah, well, or there was some scene in between where they reconnect that got cut out so that we could watch more of the Unabomber guy.
The drone guy?
The drone guy.
We can have a whole episode of the drone guy in Vegas, moping around and winning money. And
right. And that whole part couldn't have happened at a worse time, because, when they're in France and going through that would have been such a much more interesting story politically. If you're trying to break down something for us about how it is and how he had this really terrible hand dealt to him, even though he was really, then why do we keep drawing away over into that side storyline to watch him get beat up after he makes out with this guy's wife and has like the most unsatisfying threesome I've ever seen?
Yeah.
That's so sad to blow an opportunity like that, too.
I know, right? Amal, you're doing it wrong, I think.
Thanks, Slurmy Scott, for the $5. This is going great. Thanks, Dennis and Mrs. Nerdrotic.
Thanks, Slurmy Scott.
Thank you, Slurmy.
You're the best.
So overall, what'd you think? I mean, what would your...
I would say, I've got a lot of stuff in my view queue. I've got a lot of stuff lined up that I haven't watched yet that people have been telling me to watch. I was really excited that we were going to cover this. And I was actually really looking forward to it. But if they do get it together to have a season 2, and something else more interesting is on, I probably won't tune in.
Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of this. It wasn't as bad as Iron Fist season 2, mind you, but
I heard that was pretty terrible.
Oh, God,
This
it was
was good.
bad.
You know, I was entertained. I wasn't like I wanted to turn it off halfway through. I wanted to watch all 8 episodes and see what happened. I didn't think it was terrible, but I definitely thought it was okay.
Yeah, this is something I would, if I was really bored and there was really nothing else on, and my arms didn't work, and I had, it was set to Amazon Prime just to autoplay, then I would leave it on. Yeah.
See, well, I think I like him enough. Krasinski. I like him enough that
Jim
I would.
Krasinski,
That I would. I always just call him Emily Blunt's husband.
John Krasinski.
Because I didn't watch The Office, and and he's been in a couple of things that I like, but it's like he sort of peripheral. I really wanted to watch A Quiet Place, which he wrote and everything. So so that's definitely on my list to watch. So I mean, he definitely was easy on the eyes, as were the terrorists, and but as far as the intrigue, it hooked me right away, but it didn't keep me on.
I'm kind of getting through it. Here, I'll just peek in. Hey, how's it going, everybody? And I'm intrigued now. So I'm 4 episodes in. Maybe this is the point where you guys all dipped and said it kind of goes south. But I'm going to finish it now.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Well, I get turned off anytime I'm watching a storyline that involves characters that don't allow women to leave the house or have a driver's license, or it's like I just start finding myself just getting just cringing at those. She gets it together to leave him. She's like, he's changed. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, he probably has. But then he tells this whole story about how he pretty much bought her off her father, and
that was the other thing too. I mean, like I said, it's a
culture. Yeah, it's a culture that just treats women like a commodity and their property for his to do whatever
me and your dad had a little bit of deal.
Yeah, he probably paid you.
Yes, I'm getting payments with interest. No, just kidding.
I'm sure.
No, I'm the charity case here. Come on.
But and that the fact that she has to turn on him, and then it's hard to watch those kind of shows where where you have like immigrants and people that are trying to get away from being in this line of fire, and they don't have anywhere to go, and just the human trafficking that was going on. I mean, that guy that probably thinks that he honestly is doing most of them a favor. I mean, they have a roof over their head, they have food. I mean, you saw some of the conditions they could be in if they really wanted to try and get themselves off to another place. At least there they have some sort of friends and some sort of camaraderie. And he doesn't really see himself as a bad guy.
Yeah. That guy was kind of creepy.
You see him like he's charming. It's like, because you get to this point where it's like you're always just picking the lesser of evils.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever like his, because you have no say in how your life is going to go, and you don't know what's going to happen to you.
Man, you'd be interested in this. Mary Ashmead actually says, "Guess who's following me on Twitter? Wes Chapman. Don't know how."
Amos is following Mary. Yeah. Well,
speaking of not hard to look at.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go a little bit to the chat here and see what everyone's talking about here. And I guess, I missed Movie really early on, the $4.99. I got the $1.99, but the $4.99 from one before we came on says Mrs. Neurotic, Mrs. Neurotic, Mrs. Neurotic, and Dennis. Well, either we will be blessed by Gary's better half and Chore Master, or Beetlejuice will appear.
I'm hoping for Beetlejuice, Dennis.
It's showtime.
I like that. That's your new official title, is Gary's Chore Master. That's actually pretty funny. Let's see here what they've got. Slurmy Scott says, yeah, when we started out, you could only be roommates. Oh, no, sorry, it's about something else altogether.
Yeah, be careful going down that road.
Yeah, I know, really.
It starts out as roommates, then it's a drawer, and then you're never leaving. And
yeah, they're talking about all kinds of different movies here. Yeah, and Pickle even says, what was with the drone guy storyline? Yeah, same thing with us. We're just like, what the hell was up with that? It just went nowhere.
It was baffling.
Yeah. And Slurmy Scott says, yeah, what was the deal with making his boss a Muslim? Total non-event.
Well, that actually, that, I mean, I could see, I wish they had just left it at that part, because it's like, you realize, like, there's Muslims and then there's extremists. It's just like I told Gary, I said, this is like, there's Mormons, and then you have fundamentalists that have 5 wives and 13-year-old brides.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you have, like, here's your religious freedom, knock yourself out, do whatever you want, and ew. Like, that's just, why would you even want to do that? It's, yeah, just, and it's horrifying. And again, women treated as property and chattel.
Yeah, I mean, you also have Christians, and then you have the, like, really way out there kind of Christians. So that do the same kind of thing. So I know exactly what you mean.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, every religion, I mean, I don't know about everyone, but it's like, I think it just wanted to give some normalcy to it. Like, hey, they're Muslims. They have friends. They go to prayer, and it showed that it told that he had converted for his wife that he was no longer with. He was sort of struggling with his faith a little bit. But this is what I mean. Like, he's the more interesting character.
Yeah, he was definitely the more interesting character. And Jack was just, I don't know. He was kind of boring, really.
He was a little bit of a cutout. I think that he did what he could with what he was given, for sure. But I thought it was going to have a lot more action.
Yeah, I think I told Gary when we did the first episode, there was like 25 other guys that could have played the exact same role.
Are you going to show him your feather duster?
No. You said there's Gary's dusting. It's like, yes. How'd you guess?
Oh my God, he really is crazy with that feather duster. I'm like, that doesn't actually, all it does is swoosh the dust around. It doesn't really clean anything. It's a point of contention.
Yeah, he needs to get the that Swiffer thing, whatever that grabs. I've got one of those things that grabs everything, and you actually see it on it. So that's, Movie Fanobi says, enough of cleaning habits, though.
I like that Mary says we have polygamists. It's like, you know what? I think that polygamy in itself probably could work. I mean, honestly, if you're close knit and if you find that works for you, power to you. But she better not be 13 or 15 or even 17. It's like, because that's taking advantage of a child that's not old enough to know her own mind and make a decision.
Yeah. Movie Fanobi says, my Jack Ryan thoughts, well-funded, some good acting, others mediocre. Greer is my favorite. Plot got silly, chasing a wife. Agree with Dennis, movie, not series, would add more tension. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seemed like a 2-hour, or like I said, a 2-hour movie stretched out into 8 hours. And it just kept going. And like, the drone guy, and then adding all these different things in, it just was very weird.
It just diluted it for me. Yeah.
And Pickle says changing her, Kathy, to an epidemiologist completely gave away the plot. Yeah, they were very heavy-handed.
It was not hard to figure out where that was going.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you could see coming from like a mile away.
Let's see.
I forget the chat.
Pickle says overall the whole story was pretty generic, almost movie of the week stuff.
You know what? It was. That is kind of what it felt like, because those are always look really slick because you have a really tight crew that's like doing all the filming and all the continuity, and it looks pretty good. But there's not. It's kind of vapor.
Yeah.
But I always say it's broth, not sauce. It just wasn't thick enough.
Yeah, definitely. It was very paper thin. Johnny Mattress says, how do they explain Ryan leaving with the boss for days, then goes back to his desk? Yeah,
The guys knew where he was, remember? So they're like, so you weren't in, and he's like, what? No.
Yeah.
And he had to pretend that he wasn't stabbed and he wasn't, tweaked in the back and all bruised up. I guess it was a good thing they didn't hit him in his pretty face.
That was actually one of the things that made me laugh. That was one of the things that made me laugh a lot was, he tweaked his back out and everyone's suggesting he goes and do a little bit of yoga. Why don't you go do some yoga? That'll take care of your back. Because, I have back problems and everyone says that, why don't you go do some yoga? You haven't been dealing with this, for a couple of decades now and don't know what's better for you. Go ahead, go do some yoga and take care of that. That'll take care of it.
Well, I will say, Dennis, that I love yoga. There's a lot of different kinds of yoga. There probably is the right one for you.
Apple Crow says,
maybe you just need that right doctor to tell you that you should do it. Because then all of a sudden he goes, yeah, I'm going to do that.
That's a great idea.
Namaste, Dennis.
But whenever anybody says their back hurts, I say core.
Yeah.
Gotta work on your core.
Definitely. Apple Crow says, damn, Gary's hot when he shaves. Oh, wait. And Movie Fanobi follows it up with Apple Crow, hello, you dirty bastard. You gotta love our chat.
I like yoga
the
with
chat
strawberries.
is kind of like yoga with strawberries.
Pen Farm Girl says, but Dennis, is it much better than Iron Fistless, right? It's much better than Iron Fistless. Yeah, it is a little bit better than Iron Fistless. It is.
What I've seen, it's immensely better.
Yeah, Iron Feelings, as we called it. Yes.
Iron Feelings? Maybe that's the one I should be watching.
It really is just talking about it's PTSD.
I couldn't get through the first season of that. I was over it just a few episodes in.
Yeah, it's really bad. You're
with the glowing fist, and it's like, I know it's based on a comic book, and usually I like that quirkiness about something. Like, I do like that. Like when Black Panther came out and people were like, Black Panther, and I was like, I don't know, it had some really funny lines, and I said, and I really loved like when the battle rhinos came down the hill. I loved that, and people were like, really, that's what I hated about it. I said that was the part where I was like, oh yeah, this is a comic book. And they were like, okay, so we should have some beast powers. What would they have? Okay, they have rhinos. It just was like, I thought, and I thought that was sort of a cute addition, but so I don't mind things being a little quirky and being a little campy.
Mufinobi says, so what was up with Greer studying Islam? Was that in the books? I never read any of the Jack Ryan books. I've only read the John Clark books. It's the only thing I've ever read from Clancy, so I couldn't tell you.
He was studying Islam?
Yeah, with his boss Greer. Why? I mean, we know that Greer had married into Islam because of his wife. That's why he converted over, and that's the only reason why he was going to church. And when she separated from him, he stopped going to the church, is what he said.
He was having his own sort of crisis of faith.
Yeah, I don't know if that was in the books or not, because by the time we first saw him, it was God, and I just blanked on his name.
James Earl Jones.
Thank you, James Earl Jones, who was playing him. And so we had no mention about his background or his religious background or anything like that, which you really don't need to. It's just you want to know who the guy is. And so,
well, they had to do something to make it 8 episodes.
They did. They had to they had to stretch it out. We need something else. We're going to make him Muslim. There we go.
Midnight's Edge After Dark said rhinos ? I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but when it's like when you're comparing things to the book, you have to remember what kind of book you're comparing it to, and it's like those John Clancy like super like follow the money political thriller, guy of intrigue sort of hero, kind of a big overgrown Boy Scout, which I think Krasinski sort of he fits that character really well. He's just got that like earnestness that I think it really fits, but the writing just didn't give him anything to work with.
No, with the French cop saying, how can you be CIA knowing everything your government does? I mean,
after she just got done going, they're French or they're not. It's like
Yeah.
After being like super
yeah,
nationalist French.
you're super sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you? I don't know. How do you go through like being French?
Basically, if you're
We
not
fell in
French,
love and then we died because we're French.
yeah.
Fin.
If you're not French, we put you in one section of the city and we wall it off. That is it. We throw some cheese over the wall every now and then, and that is all.
Fromage.
Fromage. Exactly. Yeah, Pickle says no, Greer was not a Muslim in the books.
No.
Okay.
I just looked it up. Oh my God. You were talking about, you should see some of the reviews on Amazon. It's you can't win with this show. No, you just cannot win. It is like, there's a 1-star review saying it's anti-American pro-jihad nonsense disguised as Tom Clancy.
Did my dad write that?
And then the next review says anti-Muslim or anti-Muslim, pro-American, all white.
They thought that was super pro-American.
Like I said, you can't win. It's just so weird. They're in agreement.
It's because the writing, because the writing was so inconsistent and all over the place. It could be both.
Well, I guess then that probably hits closest to home because it is both.
I give them credit for making it. This is a tough show to make in this time.
Oh, definitely.
Right now. So,
because
I kind of give them.
You have to have some sort of balance. You're like, are we going to go this way? We can't go all the way that way. We got to kind of, and I think that they actually, I think that is an example of they do a pretty good job of that, because if you just kind of have everybody hating it because it shows all of the rotten examples on both sides.
I want to say thank you to Movie Fanobi for the $1.99. Shut up, Gary. You're off air.
Okay.
Gary never shuts up.
No,
he never stops talking. He never ever stops. Again,
no shit.
Do you think this would have been better as like a period piece? Maybe if they just made it Cold War 80s Russians and stuff and not try to modernize it, have been a little better?
Like Atomic Blonde?
No, like a real time, like just make it in the time that they were written. Because these books were written during the Cold War, right? So
yeah, during the 80s.
Make it a period piece. Think it would have been better?
No.
No.
It's like the book is probably really good. And this is an adaptation that the screenwriting, the editing, the character development, the casting was really good, but so the rest of it just wasn't there.
Yeah, it was just the writing. The writing was really bad. It wasn't as bad as Iron Fist, but it was bad.
Well, that's what you get for sticking with that one. I cannot stick with something that I'm not into like you do. You just like to sort of torture yourself with it.
Yeah, I had to get through it.
I guess it gives you fodder. You definitely have something to talk about.
Oh God, yeah. If you get a chance to watch the podcast that we did on that one, I went off on it. So I went off on it more than I probably should have, but no, it needed it. It really did need it. Yeah.
Well, it makes you wonder how shows like that get like a second season and shows like Firefly don't.
Franchise.
Right.
Marvel franchise. It's the same reason why Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which should have been done in season 3, is going on for season 6 right now. And granted, it's a truncated season 6, and from what I've heard, it might be the last season, but we're not sure. And that was because Disney told ABC, because ABC wanted to cancel it. And Disney was like, nope, it's got another season. And they're like, shit, okay, we're going to move it to Sundays then, during the summer at 10 p.m.
That's too late.
Yeah.
It's a school night.
Well, no, it's summertime. They can stay up an extra hour. And Marcus Khan says at Nerdrotic Channel, thanks again for saving my time. You're welcome.
Hey, time is valuable.
Movie Fanobi also says Tom Clancy presents Fisted, a Jack Ryan story.
Again.
Yeah, I know. Pickle actually says they needed John Clark to be the badass in the field instead of Greer. Yeah. See, that's one of the things in the book I remember was that John Clark was, and also in the movies, the early movies, was that Jack would get all this information. They would send out John Clark to actually do the workout in the field. And instead of Greer and that was the other thing that was just kind of weird. Greer and Jack Ryan going out into the field to, go and investigate this stuff. Greer, I can understand. He's still a field operative. Jack is not a field operative. He is a desk jockey. That's what he's supposed to be, the CIA.
Well, he was supposed to be what? Consulting. That's the whole reason. I mean, they did give a reason, like, you have to come because you know what to ask.
True, but I mean, John Clark, was the one that used to get sent out. They would relay the information to him. He'd go out into the field, get what they needed, and then bring it back to Jack. So yeah, it was kind of weird. That's what kind of threw me off on this. Thank you for whoever did that there. Slurmy Scott's trying to trigger me here. It says, Dennis, Grand Canyon, what'd you think of it? It's a fantastic movie. Go and see it repeatedly.
The real Grand Canyon?
The John Kasdan movie with
Danny Glover.
Yeah, and Klein.
I have to say I kind of like that movie.
Really?
Well, it's got I really like Danny Glover in that for sure, and I thought that it was real. And I thought it had one of the best quotes, like when he's teaching his kid to drive, and he tells him like making a left-hand turn in LA is one of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn in life. I was like, that is so true.
Or just make 3 right turns and there's your left.
Sometimes I do that now because Uber.
Oh, I forgot Ben Affleck played Jack Ryan.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, that's probably terrible.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin, Ben Affleck, John Krasinski, and then there's one other one in between there.
Ford?
Not the Harrison Ford one. There's another one besides Harrison Ford that was fairly recent too, and I can't remember who it is. There's been like 5.
Tom Cruise?
No, that would just been all about running.
At least it would have had more action.
Yeah, he wouldn't need to be on the plane. He would just run over to Afghanistan or wherever it was and run back. Just be all about him running.
Oh, was it Chris Pine?
Yes.
What?
Yes,
What?
Chris Pine. Chris Pine was him for one movie, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I gotta go.
Oh, she's got a new movie to watch.
We'll review that one next week. Well, maybe if it's all put in like a movie, it'll actually work better, right?
Yeah.
Because we won't be stretching it out and putting in a bunch of filler.
Yeah, exactly. Philip A. Demick says, if you're looking for something to cover, The Last Ship season 5 just started. Philip, I've been watching The Last Ship, and I'm gonna watch the last season because I started with it. I'm gonna end with it, and yes, it is sci-fi in a way. He says it's an excellent post-apocalyptic sci-fi. When you think of it as a ship with no backup, it's even more Star Trek than STD.
Wow.
It really is.
I'm not sure that's saying very much. The last ship, it's on season 5, and I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's on TNT. It's been Alec Baldwin actually is in it. Jane from Firefly. Yeah, he's in there, and he's the second in command.
Adam Baldwin.
I was
like,
Adam
that's
Baldwin.
not Alec. Yeah, I was like, we got the wrong Baldwin.
Sorry, he's not even related to them either.
What happened to the Stephen Baldwin?
He was just in The Purge, I think, as well.
Oh, was he?
That was William. That was Billy.
Was it William? They all look alike, man.
Well, they're related.
Yeah, I know.
Well, there's the super right-wing Christian one.
Yeah, that's Steven.
He was unusual. Yeah, he's funny though.
The Last Ship sounds like something I would like. I love post-apocalyptic super survivor stuff. Love it.
Yeah, it's like a worldwide plague and all this stuff. And Rona Mitra was in it as the epidemiologist that was, investigating all this stuff on board the ship. And yeah, they have to go around the world and find out where it started from and how to stop it. And it was interesting. And it's on the last season right now.
And Farm Girl said Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit with Chris Pine. It's from 2014. I'm all over it.
Yeah, I knew there was one out there, and it just kind of had crashed and burned, I remember correctly.
I've been doing that lately. It's kind of just going on IMDb and just sort of searching people I like to see what sort of obscure movies that they've been in or that are in production that I haven't been able to do. that I haven't been able to catch just because, like, if it doesn't come in up in my Netflix, and it's like the other ship show, it's like TNT. It's like with regular TV, I never am turned into regular TV anymore.
How much for a men's haircut?
Yeah. How's your father? Says Melissa. How much for a men's haircut?
I only cut men that I'm related to, and Harry, my video guy. So
If you got
actually,
some trade,
I'm a color specialist, and I really don't do that many haircuts. But I can probably recommend someone. It said, Dennis, did you finish Colony?
I did finish Colony, and I was very pissed off where they left it off at because it's not coming back. It's got canceled, which rightfully so. They kept dragging crap out, and yeah,
I was really liking that. I liked the relationship and that the married couple.
It got good at the end there. We had the aliens' enemies show up and start attacking the planet, and we're like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
The
and that's
enemy
where
of
they
my
leave it.
enemy is my friend. I love that twist.
Yeah,
That's always a good one.
and obviously these enemy of their enemy was not their friends. So yeah, we're near the end of the chat here, so we're gonna wrap things up. So thumbs up or thumbs down, Melissa?
Like I said, it's okay. Like,
between?
you know what? Yeah, somebody else might really like it. I mean, I can't say like, oh, this is awful. It was a complete waste of time. But I would say if you have a bunch of stuff that you're all ramped up to watch, I wouldn't get sidetracked with it.
Yeah, same thing with me. It's
yeah. There's
really,
there's a lot better things out there. Like if you never watched Alias, go back and watch that.
Yeah,
If you haven't watched like Battlestar Galactica, go back and watch that. Like, those are much meatier seasons.
As you can see, Gary's got our video up with all the Patreon people up there. I know it's not complete as of yet. There's a couple people that need to be added on there. And while he's doing that, I'm going to thank the people in our chat. Thank you, Jody, Johnny Pappas, Movie Fanobi, Ed Brewer, Penn Farm Girl, Mary Ashmead. Excuse me. I know Viking Bitch was in here as well. How's your father? Pickle was in here as well. Philip A. Demick. And who else do we have in here? I know Apple Crow is in here as well. Hound 3000, Fightbot. Fightbot, that's a new one. How's it going, Fightbot? Welcome aboard. Midnight's Edge After Dark, Slurmy Scott, Rolocat. Marcus Khan, Mecha Random 42, who came in to lurk for a little bit. And who else do we have here? I think that is about it. Yes, it is. So if I missed your name, thank you for coming in. Oh, and Just Saying. That's the name of the person, is Just Saying.
just saying.
Yeah, exactly. And if I missed your name, thank you all for joining us in the chat. And Melissa, any final words for everybody out there? Oh, by the way, before we go to final words, you can find all of our stuff over at nerdrotic.com. You can also find us on Twitter. I have a Facebook. We have a Facebook account, I should say. You can find us there with a page and also a group page as well. So come and join us, and you can chat to everyone else there. You can also find us over on Twitter. You can find us at Nerdrotics on Twitter. And also I'm on Twitter at DeForce. So any final words there, Melissa?
Well, thanks for having me on. It's like, I really hope that we can find something that we all want to watch again soon.
Yeah. No, it's good having you on.
We'll do it again.
It's been, what was it? I think the last thing you and I reviewed was
Riverdale. Riverdale?
No, I didn't do Riverdale with you. That was John.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah, no, that was bad.
Nope.
So, all right.
All right.
So, Children of Earth, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out.
Resistance is futile.
Good night, everyone.